one of the stories that I do want to share is, many people don't know this, only a few people. But when I got hired at Pro, this was back in 2014,
Yeah.
I think it was only like 1 or 2 months in, and you were one of the first people that I called. I was like, Neil, I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I don't know anything. Because you had that experience of working part-time at Pro too, way back when. But I look to you for that kind of advice and information, just because you are one of the people that I see and respect a lot that has that I guess that panoramic view of sports medicine, but also performance training. And I can tell everything that you do in your position now, you utilize and maximize all of those techniques and philosophies to the fullest. But let's start talking into, you can explain what you do now, how you got to this position after Radford, right? You transitioned to Schofield. So you can explain how that transition was and how that played out.
Yeah, thanks. I vaguely remember that conversation. But yeah, it's, you know, in 2009, 2010, I had just gotten married, and I was part-time at Pro, and I was full-time at Radford. And I remember there was a job posting that came through that said, hey, we're looking for an athletic trainer to work with the military. And I think at the time I might have been one of 12 candidates for that job. Okay. And in Hawaii, that's a long shot, right? It's one job. There's a lot of people, but I don't know if there were any other athletic trainers working in the military capacity at that time. That was still kind of fresh. We were still kind of in the thick of the war, it was kind of going on, and so there was a lot of innovation, I think, on some of the leaders' fronts. And so they wanted an athletic trainer to work in a PT clinic. And I vowed to myself that I would never work in a PT clinic. No offense to PTs. I just didn't want to be stuck in a building, you know, and that was the reason why I chose athletic training, was because I knew I would be on the sideline. Yes, is it hard work just like any other job? Yeah, it's hard work. But if you're on the field, like, you drown out everything for a couple hours. It's just, you're just enjoying the time. A lot of hours pre, a lot of hours post. And I knew that going from college to the high school and then going into the military, working for the military, I was like, this seems like a pretty cool gig. What I had in the back of my mind, though, is Garv had hooked me up all through those years, and I haven't told him this personally. He might see this, but I felt really bad leaving, you know. And it's just one of those things where someone has basically helped you along the way, and you feel like you owe them a ton. And I still feel, I tell Garv all the time, I thank you so much for the opportunities. But I think this is an opportunity I want to take. And I had just gotten married, no kids yet, so it was very easy for me to sit down with my wife and say, hey, I might look at this as an option. And I'm glad I did, because I'm 10 years plus running in that position, and it's pretty cool to be in. And so what it was a leader thought, hey, let's take a position and convert it to an athletic training position. And let's get out of the clinic and the four walls, and let's be proactive, which is the vision you want from any leader, right? Is to get out and get ahead of injuries and be out there and be up front. And so I went in and did an interview, and they're like, yeah, you're perfect, you know, like you look like a soldier, like you talk like a soldier. And I'm just like, I mean, okay, I guess that works. And I shadowed them for a week or so, went in, saw what they did and who was working with who and how it happened. And when I took the job, I already knew automatically. I said, hey, this is a position that we should hold on for a long time, because we can take this position and turn this clinic into a real sports medicine feel. And I wanted to be at the front line of saying, hey, I think this is something, a service that we can provide for our service members, because I think we owe it to them as well, being able to sacrifice all of that. And so I was able to jump in and take that job, which is a cool feat, in that I was one of a few. So I was able to jump on a couple committees for practice advancement and give my insight into how does an athletic trainer work. And at that time, I was also credentialed at a CSCS already. How do you work in the military? Nobody really knew. And everyone thought it was like this lip lock deal, this secret group of people, you know, like everything's so secretive. But in all honesty, you're just taking sports medicine as it is and applying it to the human. But the only thing I really say is it's a different game, because it can be very detrimental for them, right? And they pay the ultimate sacrifice. And so for us to be at the top of our game to deliver a service that nobody else can provide, I think is truly honorable. And I took it serious. You know, I said, hey, let's be innovative. And we started reshaping the way we thought, because when we were coming in, we would go in and see how they train in the morning, How do we help them improve? Is there ways we can come in and make sure they prevent some of these injuries? And at that same time, the Army was kind of rolling out their new field manual. And their field manual is basically this big recipe book of like how to conduct your strength and conditioning, right? Every single day, because it's the most important thing they do every day. So that's where we attacked it from. It was, how do we train smarter, not necessarily harder? And number two, how do we change culture? You know, Army's very culture driven, right? This is what we've done. This is what got us here. This is what we're gonna do. So I had to come in as the voice of reason and say, hey, here's some things we may want to think. You know, it's. I always say we're turning a ship 90 degrees, but we know how long that takes to turn. And so we're still kind of turning that ship. But I think we're about 45 now, 10 years in. So it's coming a long way, and I'm super excited to see what's coming in the future. But yeah, I'm an extension of our PT clinic. We do a lot of things unorthodox, meaning we think of the soldier as not as so much of just an athlete. We take a look at their family. We take a look at their well-being. We take a look at, okay, what's coming on the pipeline? What's your career like? Are you staying in? Are you getting out? Are you retiring? And so I think there's a little bit different caliber mindset that you have to think when it comes to the military. But yeah, that's what I do. So I've been running advanced programs as far as transitioning soldiers that are and beneficiaries out of the PT clinic and giving them kind of that top end strength and conditioning, if you will, that they might be missing, you know. So for instance, you've exhausted everything in the PT clinic and what's next? And they're always looking for the what's next. And the what next is we basically just take them to the gym. We program for them and then we'll do every 4 weeks, we'll do follow-ups to PTs. And the PTs will say, hey, this is what I want from this individual. I'll say, okay, here's what we're going to do. They kind of know what the entry criteria is. We kind of know what their exit criteria is. And then at the end of every 4 weeks, the PTs will come in and say, hey, Neil, how's this so-and-so? How's so-and-so? And I basically give them my feedback. Do we need to extend them? Do we need to work on something different? Do we need to take a different approach? Are they not responding? And so I think we've created a good cohort of people that communicate, that are on the same page, that are looking to not just kick people out the door, but to send them back to return to full duty almost at a near 100%. You know, and I don't think we'll ever get them to 100% because of the strict timelines that we have and the stress and you know, all the things that are, hey, you need to hurry up and get back to work. But I think we're doing better than what we could have been doing, you know, multiple years ago. We should have been doing multiple years ago. And I think that pays a tribute to just knowing kind of where we need to be in delivering services. You know, so I think you're in the same boat, man.
I think, and that's why I think it's so interesting to talk to you, whether it's on this podcast or outside of here too. Our conversations, I mean, we don't talk very frequently, but when we do, it's very meaningful, especially to me, because that's what Pro was built onto. It's kind of that bridging the gap from, okay, you're healed, recovered from injury, or you've exhausted PT. But as we both know, there's a long road to navigate effectively, or, you know, train smart to get you back to that performance level and better, so that you don't have recurrence of injury, but also you can, you know, do all the things that you enjoy doing. I mean, there's so many things that you just said. We won't touch on all of them because they all could be separate episodes. But the one good thing is, I like how you work with a multidisciplinary team, because that's what everyone needs to do, which unfortunately not all healthcare settings, I think, are set up like that. Like, you need input from all the different professions because they all add a piece to the puzzle to help to care for the athlete or the patient better. That's one thing that I really admire about what you guys set up over there. I mean, it's something that our company too is trying to, you know, integrate more of all these healthcare professionals into the pot, so that we can get better quality results, better outcomes. But the other thing about it too that you mentioned, I've heard you give talks about this too, is that it's a very holistic, or like, I guess, another multidimensional approach to not only care for the athlete physically, but like you said, it's everything from where are you in your career, what's your future plans, what's your family like, what's your mental health, emotional health, everything all plays a big part of that puzzle to make sure that we're giving the athlete that individualized attention that they really need. And I think that's what you guys do a great job at. You want to elaborate a little bit more on that piece of the puzzle? You know,
that's huge, because I think you know, it starts off with, whenever it comes to performance, we always think, you know, we think of the big three, right? It's activities always first, Sleep might be number 2. Nutrition's probably number 2, which probably should be like more like number 1, right? But those are the big 3, right? It's recovery, it's activity, and it's nutrition. But I think there's 5 other aspects that we're missing, right? It's the social aspect, which is something like right now it's huge, because people's mental health right now, it's like, if you noticed it, it's changed a lot. Even just in the store, you walk around and it's like, oh, like stay in your bubble, like everyone's so afraid to like be around people. So like, what's your social environment look like? Do you have a good support system at home? And here in Hawaii, a lot of people in the military specifically are so disconnected. So you kind of have to factor that in. What's your professional development like? So again, where are you trying to go? Is it something that you're going back to school? Are you trying to promote? Again, are you staying in or getting out? So professional development's another one that we try to attack. We try to attack their environment. I always give the example of like where I live, there's buses and stuff going around. So environmentally, or in your space of your living space, you have to make it safe. So there's no way I can let my kids run around on the street with a bus coming down the major artery. There's no way. That's 3 of the other 5. Then it comes down to your emotional health, which you mentioned. That's something huge, because emotional health for us, you can look at somebody and think but do you really know what they're feeling? Not necessarily. And after the emotional health, then we take a look at activity, sleep, nutrition, professional development, emotional health, environment, social activities. And there's one more I'm missing on that I think I'm forgetting. But anyways, I'll come back to that one. But this what we call the Move to Health wheel, and this wheel basically encompasses multiple facets of, let's say I put you in the middle. And I think that's what our multidisciplinary, what we could refer to as our multi-D teams, because the Army's so good at having specialists in all those areas. If we surround the athlete, the soldier, the person, then I think it becomes a little bit more of a conversation rather than a prescription. One of the things we always talk about is we're trying to get rid of pills, potions, and procedures, right? Those are the things you want to avoid. It's not to say that surgery is bad. It's not to say that you don't need to take any meds. It's not to say that you don't need any concoctions of, trying different recipes and things. But our goal is not to rely on those things, right? Our goal is to, what can you do to not rely on something, but improve yourself and not introduce, external chemicals that may be harmful. And that's what we're trying to do specifically with, opioid epidemics and things like that, is we want to try to get away from that stuff. Yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, just training in general. Bikram yoga, there's a lot of different ideas that we can throw around, but I think people, once you start to notice, like, okay, once you dive into their history, what's available to them, what do they like to do, and you start asking the questions of how do you sleep, how's your environment, how do you feel, they start to buy into you a little bit more as a clinician, and they take those blinders off. You notice it too. You'll notice people open up a lot more when they know and they sense that you care a lot more, rather than, here's your training plan, go out and execute.
Exactly. No, I think, and it's good to hear from your position how you apply that to your soldiers, your athletes. And unfortunately, one of my big things, both of us been in athletic training, so it's kind of like how you mentioned resources earlier. The higher you get at whatever level, whether that's in the military or professional sports, you have access to everything that we just talked about, all of the resources available, everything that you need from a multidisciplinary approach. But unfortunately, these are things that oftentimes you don't need a lot of resources. You just need the right people on your team, really, to help you in these aspects of your life. And that's one of my thing with my company and everything, trying to get all of these resources to the average person, because unfortunately, we both know if we weren't athletic trainers, we probably wouldn't be exposed to everything that we do for all of our athletes. And that's